honey badgers. For my US based fellow honey badgers, happy Thanksgiving. For everybody else, happy, what is it, General Monday? This is the kit I've been working on here, or the one I intended to do for this particular video. It's been a minute since I've done a WIP and chat, so I'm a little bit late getting this going as far as what I had intended to do, so I'm sorry if by the time I get this uploaded it's to you a little bit late. This kit ended up being more, I don't know, confetti and concentration than I anticipated. I thought it was going to be a relatively straightforward piece to work on. Oh, while I'm here, I guess I should mention, while you're watching this, if you hear little grunts or snores in the background, I got old man Ziggy next to my desk, so I don't like to move him too much since he's old. So that, I don't know how much the camera is going to pick up, but if you hear odd noises in the back, probably him. So this flower kit, I'll give you a better look at what it's supposed to look like. This is the image out of my logbook that we're working with. So when I first got this, I thought it was daisies and roses, but looking closer at it, I think it's actually like red lilies, which I don't think I've actually seen red lilies in person, I don't think, but they look cool. And then there's a little plaid heart on a plate for decoration, and then it looks like there's like maybe a curtain or something in the background. Even in the example art, it's kind of hard to tell if that's a curtain or, I don't know, a partition or something. Hard to say. But when I went to look at the actual canvas, there was almost no definition as to what was what. You can see a little bit of a line up here for where that curtain partition thing might be, but I've got most of it filled in now. But the way it was originally graphed, there was almost no border lines or anything to determine where like the flowers stopped and the walls started and the table and all that. The background here, like up here with the wall and then at the table and even the daisies, they were all primarily graphed in this same pinkish. It looks very pink in the bag, but once you put it on the canvas, it kind of tones out a little bit and looks more muted. Like I have a tiny bit placed over here. I don't know how well it's going to show up in the light, but yeah, it was all that color, and I was like, that's going to be a complete wash. You're not going to be able to tell anything. So the last day or so I've been working on this, trying to build in lines and shading and put different colors in here. So whatever this ends up looking like, if you look at it and go, oh, that looks great, or you really like the shading or whatever, one thing to keep in mind when you see however this turns out in the end, it's probably going to take me another at least probably tomorrow to finish a lot of the work, because there's still a lot of confetti up in the background there. There's a lot of browns and stuff to place in there. So yeah, whatever this ends up looking like, just keep in mind that there's a lot of colors in here that don't actually come with the kit, because I had to go back in and create lines and shading where there weren't any really. I had to redefine where this plate was. I had to put in white on the daisies because there wasn't any white, and it was just going to be a big pink wash. So yeah, that's basically what I've been working on primarily. So that's why this is all starting a little bit later in the day. So yeah, for anybody that is doing Thanksgiving solo and wanted some company, I'm sorry if this gets to you a little bit late. I'm doing Thanksgiving solo myself. I thought I would get on here and keep some of you guys company. I mean, obviously I got my critters here, but other than that, people-wise, I'm doing Thanksgiving solo this year. So I was trying to figure out what colors to do on here. I was thinking of doing the reds while I was on camera, but I don't know if let me show you here. Like in the reds here, I don't know if you can see the D's and the W's. they look pretty similar. So again, that's probably going to be another area that's going to require a little bit of concentration so I don't mess that up. So what I think I'm going to do is work on the greens and maybe the oranges that go in the centers of the flowers. I don't think I'm going to change the colors of those. These are the ones that came with the kit. So yeah, I'm going to start with the greens, I think, though. At least this green. This is sort of like that dusty utilitarian green that you see in like military uniforms, blue collar uniforms, sometimes scrubs, that kind of green. Sort of a sagey green, I guess you'd call it. I don't know why I'm showing you through the bag. I'm gonna open it. I guess I could put it in a tray, huh? Give you the full experience. So my idea for this WIP and chat, I think I mentioned in a video before that the reason I don't have any issue with the WIP and chats. The reason I don't put them up a lot is because I'm not so great. I was going to say personality wise, but that might come out kind of harsh. I'm not so great just like with the way I'm wired to just randomly start talking about stuff. I know there are some people that are skilled in that you can just turn on the camera and they'll just start talking and they can go for ages. I don't know. I struggle with that. So I have to, like when I do these WIP and chat kind of things, I just feel more comfortable if I have a direction to go in. So I tend to keep the WIP and chats on hold until something inspires me to have like a discussion topic, basically. And not to say that there's not going to be random things that go into that conversation, but I need a starting point, I guess is what I'm saying. So let me move this up a little bit so I guess I'm going to go ahead and start with the greens, which are all these C's up in here. So I'll start in this corner and hopefully this is going to be on camera. Otherwise, this can be a very weird WIP and chat. So yeah, pull out whatever you're working on or, you know, if you just, whatever you're doing right now, if you just want to have some company in the background, I'm just going to be sort of in a direction rambling. So I had an idea for this particular WIP and chat a while ago. I was just sort of kind of feeling out what all direction I wanted to go in with it, because I had a lot of like random thoughts, but I was like, I need to sort of consolidate this into a path conversationally. And then when Thanksgiving came up, I'm a little bit of a history nerd, so I thought of some things that have sort of a Thanksgiving tie that's kind of loosely tie into this other topic I wanted to talk about. So here we are. We're having a Thanksgiving WIP and chat to keep you company and have a little bit of a conversation about things that have come up recently that I've noticed in different videos in the diamond painting community. The idea behind this video is basically just not being so constrained with tradition and time of year and it's the way things are always done kind of idea. It's kind of a talk to loosely encourage people to just roll with whatever you want to do. And I don't say this lightly because this is something that I've had to work a lot on myself internally, because for a long time in my life I was very much a person of like, this is, you know, because of the environment I was raised in, this is the way things are done, this is what is expected of you, this is what you have to do to be a good person, this is what you have to do to be accepted in society, this is what normal people do, all of those parameters that we hear growing up. I would say probably regardless of where you grow up in the world, I think we all experience some sort of version of that, of family expectations, societal expectations, traditions. You know, everybody we know goes to this school or this church, or, you know, we always make the food this certain way, whatever it is in your community. I think everybody on some level has some experience of somebody telling you, but this is the way things are done. So I thought about that because I've seen a lot in the diamond painting community. Here I go talking and then not diamond painting. I've seen a lot in the diamond painting community. Oops, I'm getting out of frame again. Where people get these kits, and I'll link this back to Thanksgiving in a minute. I'll figure out a way. They get these kits where you can tell they're super excited about it. They mention how much they love whatever holiday it is. I've got Thanksgiving and Christmas on the brain because it's that time of year, but whatever your particular holiday is you get excited for. I know people that get really pumped for Easter, Diwali, whatever your thing is. But then, maybe they get these projects that remind them of their favorite time of year, whatever holiday that is, and then they put it away. And they're like, well, that's great, but this isn't the time of year people work on these things, so I'll just put it away. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I just wanted to put at least one video out there to encourage people that if you want to work on something, regardless of what time of year it is, do it. And one of the things that had me thinking about this is, have you all noticed here lately an uptick in the news in really what feels like premature deaths in the news? Like just all the time now. And it's I don't know, I find it disturbing. And I get that the world is a tough place now, not that it hasn't always been, but there's a, I would say, especially in the last 10-20 years, there's a big old surge in depression and anxiety and all of those mental health struggles, and I acknowledge that there are a lot of people that struggle with that and do, sadly, ultimately decide to do self-checkout. But not counting those, I've seen plenty of stories where people are in the news with surprise illnesses that come out of nowhere, heart defects or diseases they didn't anticipate. And I was just talking about this with a friend the other day. Those of you that may have followed me on Instagram last year, or maybe, well, it might have been earlier this year, actually. I'm forgetting the exact day now, which is probably going to make me sound like a shit when you guys hear this story. But yeah, I think it was actually earlier, like towards the beginning of this year. I'm sorry, my days run together a lot here recently with like a lot of things going on, so I get mixed up on timelines sometimes. But I'm just gonna say earlier this year I lost one of my aunts to ovarian cancer. And one of the hard things about that story is, and it's sort of hung with me ever since she passed. It was last year, because she was sick for a number of months, but considering it took her relatively quickly. But the really sad part of her story was that she worked really hard for a number of years at, I want to say she worked for this lumber company that a couple of my other relatives worked for. And they worked in like admin and payroll, I think, department. And she worked for them for a really long time, finally came up eligible for retirement. And she was really excited about it because, her kids were grown, they were in college. Everything was lining up for her to really embrace retirement years. And she was really excited because she was going to start traveling with my uncle. And, they were in that mode of doing all the things they hadn't had a chance to do, that they had been talking about for years, but were busy raising their kids and all of that. And she had all these adventures that she had been having in her mind that she could now finally do in her lifetime. And I'm not kidding, the day she announced her retirement was the same day she got her cancer diagnosis. And that always struck me, from then on, was that just that sense of like, you don't know. And I feel like that same idea has been coming up a lot, whether it's in the news, whether it's within people, my own family. I got someone that is in my close circle that got a cancer diagnosis a few months ago that I hadn't really talked about online. It's just, something I'm sort of like dealing with behind the scenes. But that was another one that diagnosis kind of snuck up out of nowhere. And it just happens like that. And so that's why I want to encourage people that I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer, but like, don't deprive yourself, I guess is the term I'm trying to reach for, of wanting to do what you need to do in this lifetime to find joy and find bliss, find what makes you happy. And I feel like there's this toxic thought going around, toxic belief system with a lot of people where they act like trying to give importance to those things, trying to, when you hear people say the sort of cliche, follow your bliss idea. And there's a lot of people that are like, that's such a privileged attitude to take, and people are suffering. And I just want to be like, I'm not denying any of that, but at the same time, you have to acknowledge that you're one person, you're one soul. You can't live everybody else's life for them. You have to focus on what you need to do, what's important to you. But I think you also need to have an understanding of what gets you excited to get out of bed in the morning. And I struggled a long time with acknowledging the importance of that, because I too grew up in that environment that told me that was a very privileged position to take, that how dare you give importance to something like that. There are bigger problems in the world. You need to just get out there and make a living and pay your bills and not have such frivolous ideas to follow your dreams. You're not that kind of person, and you didn't grow up in that kind of family, and those ideas are for the privileged. And I don't know, I feel like that is a more toxic mindset, because when I started letting go of that, because here's the crazy thing, while we're talking about all this, okay, so my reality is weirdly, all the things that have sort of rolled downhill in my life from the pandemic. I got through the pandemic, and it was during the pandemic that I got officially diagnosed with this cocktail of congenital autoimmune diseases that are just part of my life now, that I have to figure out how to, work my day-to-day around. And there are a lot of things that are just in my daily life where I can't really get away from them. I'm I'm in the position now where I had to put it off for the longest time. But I'm in the position now where I honestly have to face the reality that, at least for a little while, I'm probably going to have to suck it up and apply for disability, because every day is kind of a how much of my legs do I get to use kind of situation, where some days I feel really strong, and then other days I try to stand up and my legs are like, not today. And then sometimes, my other limbs will act up, or I have to be constantly concerned about if other people get around me that are carrying some kind of bug, and now that I'm immunocompromised, I have to be like, okay, well, can you try to stay healthy when you get around me? Because I on top of everything else, I can't afford long-term hospital stays and all of that. Um, so I had that going, and then it was right after the pandemic that I started to realize like just how frail my marriage was, and then that started to fall apart, and then that finally got to a point where I'm like, I'm good. I'm really, I think I'm topped up at secretly crying in the bathroom all the time for years on end. This doesn't feel healthy anymore. I'm looking at pictures of myself. I physically look unwell being attached to this person. And so I looked at all of that, and like like outwardly it looked like my body was crumbling and my relationships were crumbling and my finances were in a mess and all that. And I was trying to work backwards from all that and get strong again. But weirdly, out of all of that, I have felt more peace in my life coming out of that than I have. I don't know. This might be like the calmest I've ever been in my life. And I don't know if it's just a matter of getting older. Maybe I'm just like, it's not as important to stress about as it used to be. That could play a part in it, but also I think part of it was just the realization of, there was a little bit of a blessing in having the illness situation take over my life the way it did, because it came out and it showed me the true colors of the person that I thought was my ride or die. It turned out, all of the illness stuff that he said he was on board for, that turned out to be like, ooh, that's a lot. And that was a bummer. That, I'm making light of it now. That was really hard to get through. But coming out on the other side of it, I realized what a favor there was in there, because who knows, if I hadn't have gotten sick the way I did, how long I would have been attached to that. And getting to a place where I made peace with all of that and made peace with my body situation and trying to do the best I can with that, and not letting it be a super defining thing for me. And like I said, I can't get away from some of it, but at the same time I try to live as comfortably as I can with the situation I have, and I try to stay as happy as I can. But I guess there was something about having all of that illness and restructuring of my life and everything. It had me place or sort of redefine where to put the importance in life in things. And so like it rewired virtually everything in my life. Like the things I thought were important in a relationship, and where to focus my finances, and what was worth stressing over and what wasn't. All of those things changed for me, and I'm still in the process of learning them, but in that process I have learned to calm down so much. And there's a lot of things that used to stress me out where I'm just like, yeah, you're going to be okay. It's all right. And in the middle of all of that, coming back around to my original point, I discovered that I was way more unapologetic about the things that made me happy, the things that brought me peace, gave me peace. There was a needed focus for those things. And I realized that I think part of it was also, I had a conversation with my grandma early in when I think it was probably about a month or two after my ex and I had separated, and the way he went about I guess handling me saying I don't think we're a healthy match anymore was really immature and hurtful. And I had a hard time being like, oh my God, this is the person I tied myself to, and he's acting like this. And so I was trying to work through a lot of what the hell did I do feelings with my grandma. And I struggled with this feeling of like, I was thinking she's very old school. She's going to hate me for breaking tradition because, from the time I was little, I wanted a very stable relationship. That was like the big thing I wanted in my life because it wasn't something I saw in my own parents. My parents were very unhealthy for each other. But they stayed together basically because it took a long time for my mom to come out and admit this, but essentially she admitted later in life that they really didn't know who else would put up with their shit, essentially. So they just stuck together out of habit. And she kept saying, oh, but I did love him. And I was just like, my dad was very abusive to my mom on multiple levels. And I was always searching for what looked like healthier relationships. I wanted to experience what it was like to be around men that weren't a threat, because that was a big part of what I knew growing up was men that were a threat. And it, on one hand, it helped me out later in life because it gave, growing up in that environment, growing up around, not saying like all the men I grew up around with were awful, but I did grow up in an environment that had a lot of guys that hadn't worked through anger issues, a lot of guys that had sort of predatory energy. And I grew up in this area where females had to, it was that environment where you had to keep your head on a swivel basically, and you had to be the type that are like, what are you looking at, and it, in that environment, it's really easy to lose, or I don't know if lose is maybe a strong term, maybe temporarily misplace your sense of feminine softness, I guess, because you're in survival mode all the time. And I've stayed in that mode a lot for the majority of my life, where that was something I was always looking for, and it's crazy. It's like the things that women say they talk about looking for in a relationship, the big thing I was looking for is someone that I could just exhale around, basically, not have to have all of my fortress shields up. And I, even with the last relationship I was in, you know, I married that guy because I thought at the time that was the nicest guy I had experienced. The guy I was with before my ex literally tried to end my life because I, again, saw, I have this, well, hopefully not now because I've done like the mental work of trying to better whatever it was in me that kept attracting those types. But in my 20s, which is my ex, I'd been with him since I was 26, I think. So yeah, all of my previous experiences were from my 20s, and I admittedly was not always in the healthiest mindset in my 20s. I went into a lot of relationships very like optimistic and thinking, well, if you're just nice to guys and you know, you show them loving affection, then they have to reciprocate that, right? Like they're going to be gentlemanly with you. That's the mindset I had in my 20s, and I painfully learned very quickly that that often sets you up to just be a target for manipulative guys. Again, not saying all men. I'm just saying it can make you a target for the unsavory types in the world. And if you're not experienced enough in the world to know what to look for, you can get yourself into some pretty unpleasant situations. And I had to learn that lesson the hard way. And so I had a bad habit of attracting these guys that were, you know, outwardly nice. They knew how to present themselves as very gentlemanly, very soft, very protective and everything. And then once they got you comfortable, turned into a completely different guy that had a lot of inner rage. That type of situation where as a female, you know, you went in with the best intentions, with the softest intentions, and then you find yourself in the middle of this, oh shit, who is this guy? So that's why I feel bad when you hear people online a lot of times when you hear that relationships didn't work out, and then you hear people that'll leave comments of like, oh, well, you know, people don't take relationships seriously anymore, and you know, why would you get hooked up with a person like that? And people, I think, don't give enough credence to the idea that there are a lot of people that go in with one face in a relationship, and then once, like I said, once you're comfortable, give you something else entirely. And then a lot of times there is a lot of victim blaming put on the female when she tries to get out of it. They're like, oh, you just gave up so easily. You know, people don't take anything seriously anymore. So yeah, I keep getting off topic here, but let me loop it back around. My point being, having come through all of that and getting older and, you know, balancing out my mind a lot more, putting a lot more importance in what keeps me calm and what's good for my heart and my mental health and my physical body and all that stuff. I am way less apologetic about what I need in life, because the other thing I think about is like what I said at the beginning of this video. How do any of us know how much time we have? Why would we burn up our time being miserable, being stressed out, crying all the time? And I get that people got bills to pay, but I think there also needs to be effort put into, you know, even if it's little things. I think people need to just stop shitting on other people for the need for outlets. People need to put their emotions somewhere. They need to vent them out. And, you know, however people need to do that, if you need to give yourself, I don't know, whatever you can afford in a day, 20 minutes, an hour, whatever, to I don't know, whatever you best stress relief from, whether it's, painting, writing, going on a run, if you just need to sit outside in the fresh air for a few minutes, if you like to sketch, if, maybe you just give yourself some time to read some poetry, or, listen to birds. I don't know, whatever your thing is. Don't feel guilty for doing that. And just whatever time you have here, try. I was just talking about this with my brother the other day, where, my brother's gone through a lot of health and mental health struggles, physical struggles. He was sharing some of the things he was trying to work through lately with, he has some money stresses and things going on. And we just got to talking about like how we deal with things now as, siblings getting older and things like that, how we go through stuff. And I was talking to him about how I started to try to do this thing where I just, whatever is going on, I try to sort of Mary Poppins it, I guess, the whole spoonful of sugar, where you try to find the game in everything, try to find, okay, well, outwardly this looks like a big old suck fest, but how can I put a little bit of, glitter on the situation, emotional glitter? How can I, bring humor into this? How can I lighten heavier tones? How can I make a game out of this? And I try to do that with just anything. If I gotta, go to the doctor's office, I try to be lighthearted with my doctor, or I don't know, anything. So that I'm always sort of in that lighthearted mindset. Not that I don't take my problems seriously, but I feel like when I keep that lightheartedness just kind of as a constant in my day-to-day, it makes it easier for me to sort of shoulder the harder times. And I'm not saying that I don't have some days where I'm just completely in the gutter emotionally, because I am. But I've noticed that when I try to, consciously make the effort to stay in a more lighthearted space, sometimes for me, all I do is I'll just, even if I only have a few minutes in my day, I'll at least put on 2 or 3 dance songs or happy romantic songs, or, that kind of thing. I'll put on something really silly, happy out of my playlist, just to, have that high vibe energy in my heart. And start there. And I basically go through my day and say, anybody that tries to kind of mess with that, I make a mental note that, like, this person is not going to fuck with my energy right now. They're just not. I'm in a good place. You can take that attitude somewhere else. Thank you. I don't necessarily have to say that to their face. That's just the energy I keep in my mind, where if they try to bring in some negative attitude of like, well, that's whatever crap they got going on with their day, or if they want to come in and say, I don't like the way you're doing this is not how we do this, and mentally I'm just like, that's a stance to take, and I let them have their stance, and I go on with my day. And I make the conscious effort not to let anybody mess with a good headspace once I put myself there. And sometimes I slip. Sometimes people get through that guard, and I gotta start all over, basically. But it's it's done so much, like making that decision to be that person, to have that mindset regularly. It's I don't see it as selfish anymore because it's done so much for me on all parts of my life. As far as the way I handle stress now is a lot calmer, the way I process things, the way I work through my thoughts, the way I even the way I take care of my body, as far as, I make it's easier for me to make better choices. I don't I still have stress, but I don't give in so much to like emotionally eating. I don't drown everything with alcohol or, those kind of temptations. Not to say that I don't indulge here and there, but like I'm more mindful of things, as far as even physically. I'm like, you know what, Carl, you've been taking pretty good care of yourself. Why are we gonna mess that up now? And I'll have a moment of like, you know what, you're right. We're not gonna mess that up. We're gonna think of something else to do here. And just overall, I'm so much calmer and happier and lighthearted. And I more and more I hear my friends or my family be like, it's so nice to be around your energy. You're always, bringing the jokes. And over time, cultivated myself into becoming that person. I've always had that sort of, even though from time to time, I can appear a little bit rough around the edges, but I've always had a certain degree of that maternal energy, even though I don't have kids of my own. But from the time I was a little kid, I was always the one in the group that was like, this person needs food, or this animal needs food, or, they look sick, we need to help them. And people over the years have given me all kinds of nicknames around that. When I grew up in San Diego, I got called Mamacita all the time. And when I worked at camps, I started getting called Den Mother all the time, and that carried on when I got into other jobs that had nothing to do with my camp years. People were still calling me Den Mother because I was always that, have you eaten yet kind of person, or not in a, internet scammer kind of way, but but I was always like, I was always kind of watching people's mental health and being like, do you need a snack, or do you need to talk it out kind of thing. And I just sort of kept growing that and realizing that was the person I wanted to be. I didn't want to be this angry, defensive, scared person all the time that my original upbringing and environment had turned me into out of survival. And so now, because I look at all of the benefits that came from being like, what, this is the way I want to live my life. I've noticed that it's just made me a better person for not only me, but for everyone around me. I'm a much calmer person. People more often ask me, what I've been doing, what are my tricks, all kinds of things. And, and honestly, diamond painting has helped me a lot with that too, because when I first started diamond painting, and I still get it from time to time, I get criticisms from people because I think it happens with any hobby, really, but I don't know. I feel like diamond painting is kind of like amplified in this criticism, where people that maybe you get really into something and maybe people aren't really understanding like why you're into it, and they'll oversimplify it, where like the one I get a lot from people is like, well, you're just sticking dots on glue. Like what is the big deal with that? And I hear from people all the time where, oh, but this seems very time consuming. This seems frivolous. I don't understand the point. And I'm like, well, that's it's probably not your thing then. It's like one of the examples I use with my friends a lot is like, I think I've mentioned this in videos before, where a lot of my friends, like after they turn 30, I've seen so many of my friends do this. Like after they turned 30, I don't know what happened. Everyone got a memo where everyone was a runner now. Everyone took off and started doing long distance running, Ironmans, ultra marathons, all of that stuff. Like, I don't know how everyone switched over to like, running is fantastic, like right after they turned 30. Like, all my friends before that, maybe a couple of them, like if they were into track or whatever in high school, maybe they carried that on, but most of us were just like, yeah, whatever, I guess. And then for some reason after 30, everybody's like, running's fantastic. And I was just, I mean, and I played sports when I was younger, but I always hated the running part because I'm just like, I always felt like it was causing me a lot of pain. And then I come to find out that I have hypermobility syndrome, and I realized it wasn't all in my head, that it actually is really hard on my particular body. So, when people get really into talking about running, I kind of have the same attitude where I'm just like, well, that's good for you. I will not be joining you on that, but I'll be more than happy to go to a finish line and be like, yeah, you look great. You look really tired, but you look great. I'm going to go get a beer. So yeah, it's, everybody's got to find their thing though. Like I talk about that playfully, but honestly, I don't shit on anybody that if you find something that really gives you a sense of clear mind, I'm all for it. Like whatever your thing is. I used to, I guess one of my one kind of asterisk areas of that is kind of with video gaming. I have mixed feelings about video gaming because on one hand, I think of my brother, who gets a lot of mental calmness out of video gaming. He's always been that way. And so like, I understand the benefits of video gaming, but at the same time, I've had video gaming really bring a lot of damage to personal relationships as far as romantic relationships, because there's a lot of guys that get caught up in it and then they kind of get very neglectful of their human in real life relationships. And I've seen a lot of people get hurt. I've had myself hurt by it. So that would, and maybe I shouldn't put all the focus on video gaming. I guess that could be with anything. Make sure that like, you don't take something to a damaging level where you're not acknowledging the people that are important in your life. Always make time for them. That whole work-life balance thing, I guess. But yeah, just don't knock yourself for needing those things. And my point to this video being, whenever you need to indulge in those things, whenever you need to access the feelings that those things give you, like, who cares what time of year it is, what holiday it is, who cares how old you are, because that's the other thing is I hear back and forth with well, let's take diamond painting for example. I hear sometimes people say, well, that's sort of a granny I was trying to say hobby. That's sort of a granny hobby to get into, but they used to say the same thing about crocheting, and look at all the young people that are into crocheting and knitting. And now, you see kids as young as like 9-10 get into that. But then that's the other thing is I hear another group of people say that diamond painting, well, that's for children. And if you saw some of the artwork that is turned into diamond painting kits, I would argue that there's plenty of it that is absolutely not for children. So I would say, everything has an audience for everybody on some level or another. You just have to find what your jam is and bring your own spin to it. Do things for you because you need the mental health, the mental escape. Like I was mentioning earlier, if it helps bring clarity to other parts of your life, like it's done mine, absolutely don't waste that on a certain season or a certain holiday. Go for that for whatever time. If you want to. And that was one of the things that I was inspired by with bringing out this kit, because, you know, like looking at this image, you know, it's a plaid heart and daisies and bouquet. So originally when I got this kit, you know, I was still in that mindset of like, oh, well, that would probably be a holiday kit. I'll probably do it for, I don't know, Mother's Day or Valentine's Day or something like that. And early on when I started diamond painting, I was doing that too, where I was finding these kits that I was really excited for, but I was like, oh, well, that's not the time of year people work on them. Let's put that away. Even though I was really excited about it and I wanted to start it, I was like, oh no, I can't do that. That will look weird in the community. And now here I am on Thanksgiving working on something that I thought I was going to put away for Valentine's Day or Mother's Day or whatever, just because I wanted to work on whatever. Although if you check this out, I mean, I still got some of the more fall colors worked into here. But one of the other things I was thinking about is I was thinking about the history of Thanksgiving itself. You know, that tends to create a lot of back and forth conversation every year with people that get really excited for Thanksgiving, and then there are people that will condemn them because they'll talk about, you know, the history of the Native Americans and how bloody and awful that turned out to be. You know, when you think about the way in U.S. schools, the way we're given the Thanksgiving story of like, oh, the Pilgrims came in and they were starving and the Indians came in and helped them and gave them corn, and there was this big friendly feast. And then when you get older in school, you're asked to put that with, you know, the breaking of the treaties with different tribes and all of that. And so then when you get older beyond that, there are people that come out and start making you feel guilty for enjoying a Thanksgiving holiday because of the Native American history and how that turned south with the Native Americans and the Europeans and all that. So that whole discussion happens. And then I was thinking about, well, with the history of Abraham Lincoln, the other part, the presidential part of Thanksgiving, I was a little bit foggy on the details, the exact details of this, so I had to go look up. I remembered the story, but I didn't remember all the details, so I had to go look it up real quick before I started this. On October 3rd, 1863, Lincoln puts out this Thanksgiving proclamation, and basically he says, you know what, the country's been kind of battered by the Civil War lately. There's a lot of people that have lost, you know, brothers and husbands and sons, and we've been through a lot as a nation. And he came out and said, I feel like it would do us all good if we had a moment where we just took a day and gave thanks for all of the good things, all of the blessings that we still have. We acknowledge the people that are still with us, you know, the spouses and children and other family members that are still safe, the food we still have on our table. We honor the people that we've lost. We feel gratitude for the memories we have with them and the sacrifices they gave, and we have a nice memorable day for all of that, to just not get too bogged down with, you know, everything is garbage right now and what is the point. We need to have a day where we bring it back in and we look at all of the beauty that is still around us. And so he came out, and in his original proclamation, it said, how did he word it? He said, the last Thursday of November next. But I think when he came out with this proclamation, he didn't mean like forever. He just meant, why don't we try this year and see how it goes? Because actual Thanksgiving wasn't made a national holiday until 1941, if I remember that right. I think I wrote that down right. Like I said, I was a little bit foggy on some of these details. Yeah, 1941. That was when we officially came out and said, okay, official holiday. Before that, in between Lincoln making this proclamation day and it becoming a national holiday in 1941, all of the presidents in between, they were just kind of winging it. It was just sort of assumed that at some point throughout each year, the president would come out and say, okay, this year, Thanksgiving is going to be on this day. But it wasn't ever official as far as, national holiday. It was just like, yeah, how about this day in November? That sound good? And when I was reading about, the Lincoln and all that, I found this other thing that I hadn't read about before, but I thought it was pretty funny. So I thought I would throw it in here as a little like Thanksgiving trivia. I came across a thing that said in 1865, so just a couple years after Lincoln comes out with this Thanksgiving proclamation, it's switched over to President Johnson now. And President Johnson in 1865 completely forgot about Thanksgiving altogether. It completely slipped his mind that was a thing. And nothing was really planned until a local church group came in and said, yeah, about the Thanksgiving thing, are we still doing that, or what? The Johnson's administration was kind of like, oh crap, yeah, oh god, completely forgot about that. So President Johnson comes back out and scrambles and says, okay, well, what about December 7th this year? That sound good for everybody? We'll just December 7th. So I'm just saying, like, if you get too caught up in the holidays and thinking, it's tradition and this is what people do, just remember that with this holiday, they've been winging it the whole time. Everybody is doing their own thing every year, even with family traditions. Everybody has different ways. There are people that roast their turkeys, there are people that deep fry the turkeys, there are people that don't even do turkeys at all, there are people that do vegan Thanksgivings. Just everybody's doing their own thing. So like, don't beat yourself up if, like I said, if you want to work on Christmas stuff in the middle of March, if you want to work on, if you go on my Instagram, my last completion post I did on Instagram, like my last canvas here. Actually, I got it hanging up right in front of me, so I'll go ahead and show you. This one here. This was my last recent completion. It's technically like a St. Patrick's Day owl, but I just did that one because I wanted to. So, yeah, who gives a damn? Life is too damn short. Do whatever gives you joy, makes you find your bliss, makes you feel gratitude. Go for whatever gets you excited to get out of bed every day, because I feel like more than now, everybody needs to hold on to that, because we all need to be encouraging ourselves and each other not to self-check out. That's just, it's been killing me how much I see that happen now, and thinking about how people are just getting sort of sidelined by surprise illnesses, and we don't know. We never know what's going to happen. So just do what keeps a smile on your face. Appreciate the family that is still with you. Honor the people that have been with you, that taught you so much and showed you where all the best things in life come from, taught you the important things. And just, like I put on my washi tape, find your joy. Find your damn joy. And be unapologetic about it. Be unapologetically, defiantly happy regardless of what is going on. And don't feel guilty about it. Don't feel like you're being selfish, because I'm telling you that energy does in fact radiate out. You may not always see the impact you're making right away, but I promise you it is affecting people around you the same way. When you you ever notice that, like, well, just think about when other people come around you and they're in a bad mood, and maybe you were in a great mood, and then somebody comes in and you get annoyed because their bad mood just shifted all of your energy and sucked all the joy out of the room, and now you're in a shitty fog. And or maybe sometimes you notice it in yourself. Maybe you don't cross paths with anybody right away, but maybe you just have one of those days where you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and everything is going wrong, and you start your day with that energy of like, well, it started off you know, those days everyone has every so often where everything, it's just like one thing starts off wrong and then everything sort of spirals after that. You know, and that's with a negative energy. The same thing can happen with a good energy. If you go out and you start your day lighthearted, and you go out and you make effort to smile at people and say good morning or good day, or you open the door for people, you say thank you, you I don't know, if you're a hugger, maybe you spontaneously hug somebody. Not saying to do that if that's not your thing. I'm not trying to force false joy. I'm saying go for whatever fits within who you naturally are. But to just keep making the conscious choice to be on the lighter side of life, to, you know, make a joke, be silly. Don't be afraid to be silly. Make people laugh, make people smile. And I'm telling you, like, that energy does so much for people, whether you immediately see it or not. I'm telling you, it goes out in the world and they take it into their own homes and they give it to people, and it does make a ripple effect if you make that conscious choice to just live in that space of, you know, I'm gonna be happy and you're not gonna mess with it. Like I said, unapologetically, defiantly joyful. Defiantly joyful, damn it. So yeah, just some thoughts for today. I feel like this has gone on plenty long enough. But yeah, I hope you can take something away from this. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving if you're in the US, and I hope I kept you company. So till next time, guys, we'll talk soon.